And when you're talking about those things in terms of the workplace and how we fix the gender pay gap, it does go down to changing society's views and changing men's views as what a father is and how that interacts with the workplace. And so I've been quite lucky since I've had a child. I've been able to work flexibly in all my jobs. And I would never take credit for my wife's assertion into senior roles at all. Obviously, she's done it all herself, disclaimer. But me being able to work flexibly has helped her then go into a senior role in comms and whatnot, because that means that the drop-off and pick-ups are all shared. And that's not necessarily down to policies or whatnot, that's down to culture, and that's how my perspective of what I wanted to do. And so what we're trying to really do through MFF is champion that. And I think you're right, it starts with how do we change the perspective of ourselves and what we expect. Because when we start to go into our workplace and expect certain things, and I think the younger generation are going to be doing that, workplaces have to adapt and have to change their policies, change their culture to support dads at work. So that's one big thing in terms of support for dads. Another big thing is around mental health. So my daughter was born with a really traumatic birth experience. My wife had some quite bad anxiety in the first year of birth and whatnot. And then my daughter had a severe allergic reaction, which meant I had quite a reaction in terms of like stressed out about it, basically, and a little bit of PTSD and whatnot. And that was a tough time for me, 2-3 months. And what I found is that when my daughter was born, even though we had intensive care, 2 weeks in hospital, all that sort of stuff, there was like literally no kind of care about my state, my mental well-being or how I'm doing. It was, rightly so, my wife got a lot of attention, rightly so. I'm not saying we should take that away, but how can we kind of start supporting the dads a little bit more as well? And that was part of the reason why MFF started as well, off the back of that. So what do you think, what more support do you think dads need and should be given?
I think the key here is, and you guys have all touched upon it, is there's a preconceived notion of what a dad does. And it's something we then internally battle with, whether we know it or not, is, am I, like the Uber dad, for example, am I an Uber dad or am I just a normal dad? Am I going above and beyond or is this normal? And it's the same thing with parental leave and gender pay gap. We'll get to that. And I think to get to that stage, we need to normalize just being a normal dad. And what I've found really helpful with this group is I am now engaging with lots of dads who are trying their best to be dads, but not from a perspective where anyone is, I'm doing more or less than you. It's more a case of, I'm trying to do this, what's your view on it? Or have you tried this? Or, oh my God, we've got chicken pops. Is porridge baths a real thing or not? I don't know. And do they eat it afterwards? What's going on? So, I've learned that, and then it's motivated me to kind of drop any kind of ego I had and humble myself to feel like, yeah, all right, just because I've come home and I've helped out, that's not me doing anything special. That should be normal. The same way, I read a great tweet where someone was like, isn't it great when dads help clean the house? And the tweet was like, no, you're cleaning your own fucking house. That's what you're doing. And it's the same and that's what parenting is. It's like, when people say I can't come out, I'm babysitting. Babysitting whose kids? Mike? No, you're parenting. They're your kids. What the hell's going on here? So I think it's helped readdress that in my mind as well. I've always tried my best and I've felt along those lines, but just to see it more normalized has helped, because you don't see that in the wider context. You don't see that in media depiction. You don't see that from the way your workplace treats you. You have a kid, you have 2 weeks off, and then you're back at work. No one at work's asking you about, how's it going? Are you struggling with the sleep? Unfortunately, I work in the public sector, so I've got that support, and other people don't have that. So I feel like in terms of support, and to answer your question, I feel we need more platforms where we can hear the dad's experience, good or bad, that is non-judgmental, that people can then absorb that and then they can look at that and actually reflect on an experience that might be their own, and then they can almost judge themselves and think, do I want to be better or worse than that? Do I think that's amazing what this dad's doing, or do I think, that's a bit like me, I should maybe up my game a bit? And then when everyone starts thinking of parenting in that way, then it becomes just a normal thing. And when it becomes a normal thing, that's when people will go to a job interview and be like, what do you mean I don't get flexible hours? Why would I take this job? And then that's how you get changed.
If that HR person's job is to discuss what happens when a child comes into your professional's life, then it should be both discussions, male or female employees, and that's where the normalisation becomes in. And I think we're not there yet, but I think that's when it should be. So it's not even a thing, and that's great. Yeah, I agree totally.
So that question about more support then, what areas do you think dads need more?
I think we're at the point where my point of view is like the discussion is there. They're talking about the fact that depending on levels of ego, telling them what you want because we're all coming at it from different points of view, and there's no one right way of which a dad might want to access it. But the fact stuff's out there, the fact that there's things to see and read and talk and hear other people quite comfortable. We happen to be people that are comfortable to a certain extent to talk about our experiences, and that's good because that helps, and I think that's the start point. And I think just having that discussion is always the first point, because that might be the first contact point of seeing someone's alternative viewpoint, because you grow up in a particular culture or a particular way of being, you don't hear that voice, and it's not there on the TV and the mainstream media. So it's about just having that discussion in a way that I think we try and do, which is not go and do that, not pioneering in that kind of way, but actually get involved, because look at the bonuses, look at the positives of it. What we gain as human beings is some great relationships with our children, some great relationships with the people around us who help and support us, and also the chance to go, oh, it's all right. I'm stressing about stuff, but not stressing about everything, because it's there to talk. So I think maybe just keep the discussion going, keep the platforms there, keep the talking. Us finding as our kids get older, we've had the different Twitter debates on increasing the old things. I don't know what it's like to have a teenage kid, but I'm gonna, and that's gonna be crazy. And I don't know what it's like to have a boy and a girl, so I don't know which one's gonna work out. Why it's a whole different experience there.
Absolutely, yeah. Well-being. I guess my personal experience means well-being is always going to be kind of up there. My situation is obviously acute, but my wife died 5 hours after giving birth to our second son. So well-being very quickly became an issue. Immediately became an issue, because how was I going to cope with a 3-year-old? Just over a 3-year-old, and a newborn baby. A 3-year-old is dealing with the death of his mum. I'm dealing with the death of my wife, my partner in crime, the person who's going to help me raise 2 kids. And the reality is that nothing was out there to support me. Absolutely nothing as a bloke. There's bereavement stuff, which is a whole separate thing. But in terms of a father and dealing with raising 2 children and having support networks and things like that are out there, there was nothing. And that's why I kind of partly started this blog, or Twitter handle, and this blog, to say, actually, as a young widower with 2 children, this is what I've been through, and this is what I had to do to get the help that was there for me. In the end, it was it was actually a Christian charity, and I'm not religious in any way, shape or form, who someone recommended to me, and they contacted the charity, and they actually matched me up for a couple of years. This guy called me every few weeks to check in with me. He'd lost his wife some years before, with 3 daughters, was now subsequently remarried, and so on and so forth. And that help, in terms of my well-being, if a couple of people hadn't recommended things, but if I hadn't recognized myself as well, that my mental well-being was paramount, things could have gone differently. I'm a member of groups of dads, widowers and widows, young on the younger side, with young children and so on. But even in the group, and there's a separate group of widows, even within that group itself, we're not having the same conversations that we're having in MFF, or we're having them in different ways. And so, and the issue about well-being is still doesn't progress beyond the default, if you like. Or have a conversation about how you're doing, but then beyond that, it doesn't go to the levels that it really needs to go to. And this societal issue of men not being able to talk about things, men not needing to talk about things, you have to be the big bloke. You have to be able to cope. Doesn't matter what life throws at you. And I'm like, so your wife can die and you should still be the guy who just is okay and keeps on going. It's bullshit, man. And until society as a whole kind of drops this stupidness around men having to be these big, bold, no matter what you go through. The suicide rate for men, under 40 or over 40, whatever the stat is in terms of the age group, is going to remain as it is, and it will continue. I know a number of guys who are dealing with mental health issues, but they won't talk about them openly. And these are all kinds of different mental health issues, and there's just a reluctance to. And you can see them going, like, how do I even broach the conversation with that guy? Because he's not even ready to have that conversation. Society doesn't want to hear him having this conversation. But the mainstream want to give voices to his name that won't be spoken. But I think we know a certain guy who's on a certain breakfast morning television program, and we'll give voices to a dickhead like that, but we won't to the everyday man in the street who needs to hear the voices of everyday guys who are dealing with shit and who aren't coping particularly well, but and don't know how, or don't have the skills, or too afraid to reach out and say, you know what, I need some help. Can someone come and help me?
Because regardless of what happens, as soon as kids come into it, there's as a whole big, whatever you're dealing with an individual as an adult, and you put kids in the mix, there's a whole layer of stuff. Even the most comfortable person that's dealing with has a relatively balanced life, if you like, and their mental health is pretty strong and all those kind of things there, who feels comfortable talking about stuff, you throw kids in the mix, all bets are off. And we've all experienced that, regardless of other things that have gone on. And I totally agree with what you're saying out there. On a simple level, a kid comes in, it changes stuff. There's a reason why in war situations they use sleep deprivation. It's the torture, that and probably the shark song. And it's just the torture.
The R&B version.
Sorry, we did say we weren't going to go to music, right? When Wiley puts out a version of it, we'll go there, right? Sorry, Kano. All right.
Are we going to have to wait for Stormzy to have kids before we hear that version?
Actually, there you go, that's true. Kids in Starvest.
I think what's interesting is that
Stormzy's kid coming out of Starvest.
For the United Jack on it.
This is what you get with this group, though, because it's not just a dad's group that you go in to talk about dad stuff. And I think that's what I enjoy, the element of it. I mean, I like the fact that it was the Kano and Gets group the other day. It will be the football group the other day, because that's, we don't just one day be like, okay, I'm a dad now, and I can only talk about dad things for like half an hour, and then that's it. It's human conversations where you can have an everyday conversation, and then someone can just drop in and be like, oh my days, my kid won't sleep, like, what am I going to do? And someone can come in and be like, have you tried this? Put on Baby Shark featuring Stormzy, it makes him sleep. Like, we can do that, and that's what it is. Hey, don't get me started on Dirty Nappy Gang yet. But that's what it is, and I think it's a forum where people are talking, are comfortable being themselves, and there's other people being themselves, but there's enough level of politeness to kind of listen, so that you can have that forum where people can share and see how they're feeling, how they're doing. The example the other day, a few weeks back, when someone's mum was like, their kid was like being aggressive with their mum, and then they was like, should I intervene or not? Like, where else would you have gone with that conversation otherwise? And I'd got loads of reasonable conversations saying, I think what you did was cool, I can understand what you did. Otherwise, you'd be just stressing, and then you'd go home and you take that stress home. And you're anxious.
Perspectives on why you could or couldn't, because the moment's gone and it's happened, and you're carrying it around with you. And then some people said, I see that. Oh, I don't see that. Okay, but no one's saying. There's no absolute thought, and it's nice that the people involved.
Yeah, if you Googled that, then you'd get Voldemort mentioning it.
But this is the thing: you go to the internet, you get extremes. You get anti-vaccines or pro-vaccine. There's no middle ground in however many pages you look at, because the ones that get hits are the ones that are extreme. Yeah. So it's nice to have someone say, I might not have done that myself, but I can see what you did. And those subtleties, you said it before, and prove nuance. It makes a difference, because that's what I want. I want nuance. I want someone not to go do or do not do. Okay, because I don't feel I feel nuanced. I don't feel absolute, and that's.
And I think that what I'm really proud of is that we can have conversations and disagree with each other, whether it's on Daddy Debates, in a WhatsApp group here, whatever, but we still have a level of maturity and we're reasonable enough to understand that you might have a different perspective based on your experience or whatever it is, but that's fine. As long as we all have a goal of like, we want to be good people and good dads, we can disagree on stuff. And I think just in society at the moment, we're seeing like a lot of the opposite. Do you know what I mean? Look at Brexit, there's lots of no compromise, extremes, my way is the right way. And I think it's just so refreshing to like have a forum where we can just have honest conversations without judgment and not saying I'm right because this is what I say, apart from when it comes to Getz and Kano and because
I was right.
Because I was right about that.
Even then you were polite.
Yeah, and J House is not underrated, Jonathan. Anyway.
Don't get me started. East London home of music, yeah?
But so let's just close then and say, like, with MFF in the future, like, what would you want to see? Where would you like to see MFF go? Like, what sort of topics do you think we should talk about? Where do you want to see it grow in like 2 to 3 years?
Well, I think, I guess there's two parts for me. The first part is I think we need to keep having these same conversations because there's a whole generation of men. You know, baby boomers are probably too late for them now, but Gen X, Gen Y and Z, millennials, whatever you want to call them, there's not enough of them that are hearing and having these conversations. So I think these types of conversations need to be kept. They need to be had, the blogs on the website, so there's a resource for people to go to. Because I think from some other groups that are members of for various different things, you see the same questions being asked over and over again, right? New people come into the groups and so on, and the same questions. And so the conversations that we're having now, video podcasts, blogs online or whatever, other dads are going to benefit from that 2-3 years down the line because those are real relevant events that aren't going to date. But I think also as well, there's another step up that needs to be had, the level of conversations that now need to kind of, we need to be moving to lobby politicians, organizations. There's that all-party parliamentary group on parenting or fatherhood, that those the conversation needs to be stepped up to have our voices heard in those circles, because I think change can only be affected when you're part of the conversation. You can talk as much as you want outside of a situation, but if you want to have real impact, you've got to be at the heart, you've got to be in the thick of things, kind of championing and saying, well, actually, you know what? This is what real fathers are talking about, discussing, and these are those challenges. So for me, yeah, and I can see MFF and the work that you're doing, Elliott, is on that track. But yeah, 2-3 years time, I want to see you kind of almost in your MFF cape and t-shirt, kind of being there, kind of
merchandise.
championing.
Cake, branded cakes. Avengers Assemble. Yeah, we do that. I think more the same. I think is every day, every year, more dads are going to arrive in the scene and going to be asking the same questions. And there's a lot of it that's cool. We're all at different stages, but it's interesting how we can still talk about the same stuff, whether it's in the past for you or whether it's in the near future or whether in the distant future. It's the same kind of conversations, and we're all happy to continue talking about it. I think that's the comfortable thing. As soon as people are happy to talk about particular topics, you can keep going on those topics and introduce more people into it and bring other people in the conversation. So for me, it's more of the same, because to bring more people into it and keep, you were talking about platforms earlier, about keep pressing the idea that there is a mum's net. Now there's MFF. It's like, well, engage with that, get people thinking that that's a reasonable thing for a dad to do, even if they're still going to be doing I'm going to be working full time because that's financially what your situation. That is the situation. But and then until that changes, until gender pay gaps, until working environment, until we don't scratch the surface of most middle class parents, and it's still the 1950s. We still talk about that and encourage people to go, all right, there's a few more people. 2015, the shared parental leave legislation came in. As the uptake changed, have people, and I think you're right, there's a political viewpoint on that, but the conversation needs to keep going and keep rolling, because that's where it sticks. It doesn't. It's ripples on a pond, I guess. All the other cliches, but that for me, that's where we go.
I think we need a sponsorship deal. Right? So I want us, BBC, put us in a nice studio. I see loads of podcasts, they're not as good as ours yet. We need to get Elliott out of this shirt.
Hey, this is
Any fashion designers, we need like a nice MMF branded apparel. That's what we need happening. Nah, in all seriousness, although those things are very, very important. We need some cakes as well, yeah? I need some cakes. Yeah. I need to be fed. We've been here for a long time. I think
Nando's still.
Yeah. Well, I think the main thing is essentially I want more people to get involved. I want it to get to the point where people don't want to hear what we're saying anymore. We want lots of people get involved. Tell us what you think. Tell us what your experiences are. We are as strong as the number of us there are. Right now we've got a decent number, we've got good voices, but then we're going to become an echo chamber as well. I want to hear from other parents. I want to hear from other experiences. I want to know what it's like. You don't have to be as involved as, coming on a video podcast. You could get involved in the Twitter debate. You could just observe and give us feedback. You can write articles, or you can tell us whether they're good or bad or whatever. It's like you were saying, we are biased to our lived-in experiences. Well, this is a way you can live 50, 60, 70, 80 experiences without having to move from your phone. And you can do with that as you please. And you can use that to grow and try and become better parents. This whole thing about change, well, the best change is these humans we've made, make them better people. Let's hope the next generation aren't pumping us full of single plastics and fumes and burning the Amazon and putting dickheads in parliament. Let's get to a point where people are more comfortable talking, where it's not a weird thing asking your mate, are you okay?
Yeah.
Let's have a coffee, not let's go to the pub and talk, let's have a coffee, what's going on? You're parenting, how's that going? How are you feeling about being a dad? And I think, if we can normalize that conversation so that it gets to a stage where people are like, what, you had to talk about that? Wasn't it just a done thing? That's what I'd like. And the sponsorship deal. Yeah, and the cake.
Yeah.
Definitely the cake.
Yeah, no, I think I echo all those things. I think the first thing I want MFF to achieve is JJ in a Tottenham shirt. I think we need to do.
I don't even know scores.
The next episode, if enough of you comment, JJ has promised he will wear a Tottenham shirt.
When did I promise?
Hashtag JJ in a Tottenham shirt. No, I think I echo what you said. I think ultimately I want MFF to be the place where if you're a new dad, no matter where you are in the country, no matter what race you're from, age or whatever, you know that MFF is there to support you, to encourage, to engage. I want MFF to continue to be fun. I think the reason that it's Music Football Fatherhood is that when you become a dad, you don't just lose the rest of your life, or you shouldn't lose the rest of your life. You still have your hobbies. Most of men like music and football, at least one of those, or sports or culture, what we talk about. So I think it's really important to just encourage dads to be, get their hands dirty, to be engaged, involved dads, whatever you want to call it, but also understand that doesn't come with just that's all you are. You can be a whole person. You can have nights out with your mates. You can still go to the football. You can do whatever you were doing before, obviously adapting it. But that's really important. I think when it comes to well-being and just enjoying yourself and living life to the full, which we should all be aiming to do. I want MFF to be a place where dads can get that. So I think it's going to be more growth. I'm really excited about the future. Our team is growing. Please do get involved in the Twitter chats that we do, 9 p.m. every Thursday on Twitter, #DaddyDebates. We debate a whole range of issues, serious to not serious. We have blogs and articles for dads at every stage of their journey, whether you're an expecting dad, you're a working dad. We talk about how relationships change after fatherhood. We talk about work. We talk about finances, all that sort of stuff. We have the podcast. We have a WhatsApp group as well. So if you want to be involved as a contributor, join the team. We encourage you. We're looking out for more people. But if not, as JJ was saying, just be part of the community, man. Engage, and hopefully MFF will help you to enjoy your life while being a dad and getting that wholesome experience that we should be seeking for from life.
But no Tottenham fans.
And on that point, we've been Daddy Debates, brought to you by musicfootballfatherhood.com. Peace. I had to get you back for the shirt comment. I was like, tick, 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 what am I going to say?